is this wonderful principle number
Yeah.
9.
Yes, absolutely.
Movement, feel the difference.
Hmm.
So we have really enjoyed working on the concept
Hmm.
of exercise
Yeah.
as we have worked with our community of emotional and binge eaters.
Hmm.
So many times people have had really traumatic, rigid histories
Horrible.
relative to
Yeah.
that word exercise, which we
Mhm.
always say in our proper grammatical manner is a 4-letter word to
Mhm.
many people,
Yeah.
which is really such a shame
Mhm.
because healthy,
Mhm.
what we call intuitive movement, is
Mhm.
actually really wonderful and loving and supportive of
Mhm.
every aspect of yourself, your mind,
Mhm.
your body, your spirit, your neurotransmitters,
Mhm.
everything that helps you to function optimally is, in our opinion, related to some form of healthy,
Mhm.
albeit intuitive movement.
Right, right. And when you use the
Yeah.
word healthy, I mean,
Yep.
you are talking about not only physically healthy, but emotionally
Yeah.
healthy,
Yeah.
and that's what we're going to talk about today is
Mhm.
bringing an emotionally healthy process to your relationship with movement. And
Yeah.
then, of course, we'll go a little bit deeper and
Mhm.
draw more parallels into more soulful living and where movement fits into that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we love the concept of
Mhm.
supporting our bodies.
Mhm.
And we've done a lot of work to really, in an authentic way, move it, pun intended, away from exercise, burning calories, beat your body into
Mhm.
submission. It has to
Mhm.
look this certain way, it has to be this certain size or measurement, into how can we help ourself and our body self optimally function
Mhm. Mhm.
in ways that we can embrace it and respond to its need,
Mhm.
its healthy need for movement.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on a really important piece that distinguishes exercise from intuitive movement, and that is what is motivating you
Yes.
and what's your intention behind the movement.
Mhm.
Diet culture, I believe, has really like bastardized
Mhm.
exercise or movement and has made it into this thing that you can manipulate and force and create a certain outcome. And I guess in some ways that's true if you're very rigid and do things a certain way, but you're completely disconnected from your body, like completely. I mean, the paradox there is you are doing to your body while completely disconnected from your body,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So as you're talking, I have this image, and way too many clients when they first came in, with
Hmm.
these stories. And if you think about it, like a traditional elliptical machine, there's like that calorie burning
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
And most clients will report that they keep looking at the calorie burning thing, and they'll increase or decrease based on that. And
Right.
they won't get off of the machine until they've
Until.
hit that, whatever was their target calories.
Right.
Instead of, my heart is going way too fast,
Right.
I'm like exhausted,
I'm
or
getting
I'm
dizzy.
hyperventilating, and
Or
so,
I just want to be done.
yeah. And so when
Yeah.
you're talking about disconnecting,
Yeah.
I'm just kind of thinking about that
Yeah.
image,
Hmm.
or somebody with their, Fitbit or whatever, and they're
Hmm.
going according to that instead of being connected to themselves. And, and sometimes saying like, I'm tired, I need to stop, or, oh, this feels so good, I'm going
Right.
to continue.
Right.
So it's about going back to the body self,
Hmm.
listening and honoring by
Hmm.
supporting the needs and being internally directed
Hmm.
as opposed to externally directed.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so, what does it mean to be internally motivated? What are the things that inspire you to want to move your body in ways that feel really good?
Yeah.
And, what I love about this chapter in the intuitive eating book is they really emphasize how you feel.
Right.
And you guys know us well enough by now
Right.
to know, of course, we love that concept. But, you're really motivated by how you want to feel in
Mhm.
this movement experience and then how you are feeling
Right.
in the movement experience. And that's how you make decisions,
Right.
right? So ahead of time, you're thinking, what would feel really good for my physical body? So you mentioned like after sitting all day
Ah,
cross-legged, which we're both super guilty
yeah.
of. What would feel really good is to get out there and walk fast and get those
Mhm.
hips going. And then while you're in it, what would feel really good? Do I want to
Mhm.
slow down? Gosh, some days I find I actually need to like pound the pavement more.
Mhm.
So I might do a little bit of a jog.
Mhm.
So you're always kind of checking in with your body.
Mm.
What would feel good?
Right.
And allowing that to really guide you in your decision making. Doesn't
Yeah.
have to be 100% of how
Right.
you make your decision, but it's a pretty big part.
Yeah. I think the other thing that guides us with what kind of movement we want on any given day is also what our soul wants, right?
Always.
So, what our spirit wants in the form of activity. Okay.
Mhm.
So, as you're talking, I'm like, sometimes my soul wants to ride a bike,
Yep.
right? Because I
Mhm.
like that feeling of just like the wind going in your hair. And,
Yeah.
it just is really cool. And sometimes I can take
Mhm.
myself to places further, on a bike than I can if I'm walking or I'm running. So I might say, like, I want to take my music with me and I
Mhm.
want to kind of go out and ride my bike to then
Mhm.
get good views of the mountains.
Sure.
And that's what I want to do.
Yep. Yep.
Right. Or sometimes I feel like, I really just need to talk to my best friend and I'm going to call her up and I'm going to say, can we go walking down the green belt and
Mhm.
have a girlfriend talk?
Mhm.
So those are driven by my soul.
Mhm.
Never in that thought process is calories. How many calories do I want to burn? What did I eat for lunch? What am I going to
Right.
go out to dinner on Saturday? And how do I burn calories in advance? Okay. These are
Mhm.
all these old eating disordered thoughts that would motivate you towards exercise. And we're
Right.
talking about what does your body need and what does your soul need in the form of movement.
Mhm.
And that's why we call it intuitive,
Mhm.
because this comes back to yourself as the ultimate expert
Mhm.
over what you need. And it will always be exactly what your body needs,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Because some
Absolutely.
days your stress hormones are so elevated that you
Mhm.
do need a hard run. And
Mhm.
sometimes you're just darn tired and you want something that is more gentle and
Mhm.
easy for you or
Right.
allows you to kind of watch the sunset as
That's
opposed
me.
to, yeah, something else. So it's really important that we come back to self
Yep.
and we have the right intention.
Yep.
That is, I'm going to care for my body in a way that's natural, and
Right.
that is to move it in a way that my soul and or my body needs on that given day.
Mhm. And I think the really interesting thing about this approach of intuitive movement is it's really relaxed. It's really
Mhm.
calm. It's really gentle. It is all about what's going to feel good for you right now. And
Mhm.
as we've talked about in previous principles, I think one of the fears that we hear a lot is, yeah, but if I don't make a pretty tight schedule for myself, then I
Right.
just won't do
Yeah.
anything. And that's diet mentality. If I
Mhm.
don't create this meal plan and follow it just right, then I'm going to completely fall off the wagon and I'm going to binge.
Mhm.
And that's what we see then with this exercising diet mentality. If I don't adhere to this rigid exercise schedule and legs are on Tuesday and arms are on Thursday and that's it, then I'm not going to exercise at all. And actually, what we find is the contrary. So, just like with dieting, it might start out strong and you might be able to stick with it for a little bit. But as soon as you're not feeling like doing it,
Mhm.
or as soon as your schedule changes and you can't follow it exactly the way you had envisioned, then you go into that black and white
Right.
place. If I can't do it perfectly, then why do it at all?
Yeah.
And so we see the same thing happen with exercise.
Yeah.
It's like if Tuesday comes and it's leg day and
Mhm.
you don't feel like doing that,
Yeah.
then guess what? You're going to fight with yourself.
Mhm.
You're either going to force yourself to do some kind of exercise that you hate and don't want to do on that particular day,
Mhm.
or you might fall into that black and white. Well, if I don't do legs, then why bother?
Right.
And intuitive exercise or intuitive movement offers you a different experience. It
Mhm.
says, you know what? Let's decide today what's going to feel good
Mhm.
today.
Mhm.
And let's go with that. And then
Mhm.
tomorrow, you have the freedom and the flexibility to decide tomorrow what's going to feel good for you.
Yeah.
And actually, you end up really kind of sticking with, for lack
Right.
of a better word, some type of frequent movement
Mhm.
than if you try to create this rigid routine.
Right.
I know for me, I have no rhyme or reason to my movement other
Mhm.
than When I feel like doing it, I do it.
Yeah.
And when I don't, I don't. And you know what? Most of the time, I feel like
Mhm.
doing something.
Right.
And it might be a very gentle 20-minute walk. My heart
Mhm.
rate is not up. But you know what? My blood is flowing, my
Mhm.
muscles are moving. It feels good. I feel inspired by Mother Nature.
Yeah.
And it motivates me then tomorrow to want to have some kind of experience like that again.
Yeah.
And so that's the beauty of really taking this calm, flexible, loving approach with your body and with
Mhm.
movement.
Yeah. So, really, I would invite anybody who wants to kind of change your relationship with movement to kind of restart with this mindset.
Mhm.
Okay. This mindset, like Dr. Ashley just wonderfully described, that is, first of all, the intention is to love and support yourself towards feeling better,
Mhm.
right? So it's about like, I just want to feel better on
Mhm.
all aspects of my physical, mental, and emotional kind of self. And actually, exercise or movement is one of the very few things that touches all of those areas in a
Mhm.
really positive way. So, kind of saying, I do want to support all of those aspects of myself through getting familiar again with movement, but with this new perspective.
Mhm.
All right. And you might then identify what are some things that maybe I've seen other people do or I've thought
Mhm.
about doing, that eating disorder part of your mind is going to say, but that's not enough calories and
Mhm.
that doesn't really qualify as
You're not
exercise because you're
sweating.
not sweating, or I don't want to do that because I am going to sweat, right?
Mhm.
So allowing yourself to just brainstorm,
Mhm.
what would 5 to 7 different activities
Mhm.
be? And that might be, running around in the backyard with a new puppy. That might be, I remember one of my favorite things was my daughter would skateboard right at the park, and I would like run after her and like hoping and praying that she didn't like fall and have a head injury. But that would be movement for that
Mhm.
day, right?
Right.
So identifying, without that dieting, burning calorie mentality,
Mhm.
what those would be,
Mhm.
going on a bike ride with a partner or with a friend. And then through the week, saying every day, let me just kind of check in with myself
Mhm.
and see if I want to do this. Not
Mhm.
that the expectation is you have to do it every day, but just inviting yourself. How would this sound today?
Right.
And then doing it
Yeah.
again, challenging that part of your mind that is saying this is ridiculous, this isn't doing
Mhm.
anything,
Mhm.
this doesn't qualify as this. Please
Mhm.
don't wear the Fitbit if you have one of those
Mhm.
darn things, but just give yourself permission to spend time enjoying
Yeah.
your body through movement,
Yeah.
okay, with what your psyche wants to do on that day.
That
Okay.
that is so important. And I love what you
Yeah.
said about like identifying many different movements
Hmm.
because just like our eating, we want to
Hmm.
have options,
Right.
right? We don't want to eat the same lunch every single day. Nobody
Mhm.
wants to do the same exercise every single day. Like that's
Yeah.
boring. Your body
Right.
doesn't want to do that. Your body wants to be stimulated with lots of different
Mhm.
experiences. And so coming up with lots of
Mhm.
different things. I like to go for walks here, but I also like to go kayaking with my daughter, and I also
Mhm.
like to do a dance class with my friend,
Mhm.
and just knowing that I have these choices, right? And so depending on my mood, depending
Right.
on time, depending on energy level, depending on weather, I suppose, you have these choices, right?
Right.
So you're not trapped
Mhm.
in one thing that you just have to do no matter what.
Yeah. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, part of this also is repairing some of the past exercise trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I would risk to say that the majority of our participants
Mm-hmm.
have, similar to dieting trauma, experiences of exercise trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Those times when, either you were told that you should or have to when you were
Yeah.
a kid,
Yeah.
or as an adult or late adolescent, you told yourself, I have to do this and I
Mhm.
have to do it in this way. I mean, there's always these horror stories about someone who ran to the point where they ended up like heaving, or,
Mhm.
kind of you're in gym class and you're being pushed, by a coach to the point where you get an injury, or shamed, for not working hard enough, right?
Mhm.
So when you think about the concept of, and I'm purposefully using the word exercise now because
Mhm.
that's usually what's been connected to the trauma, that expectation is going to be, along the lines of the past trauma. So maybe I'm going to feel shame, okay, or I'm not going to be able to do it good enough,
Mhm.
or I'm going to look silly when I
Mhm.
do it, so I'm going to be embarrassed doing this in front of others. All right. So I am sure, and this would be something that you can look for within yourself when you think about this invitation to
Mhm.
welcome yourself back into healthy intuitive movement,
Mhm.
right? That old traumatized part of yourself
Mhm.
is probably going to come up with some feelings and maybe some memories or images of past trauma.
Mhm.
So, what you want to do is to be able to, with compassion and empathy, acknowledge, yeah, that was what happened in the past. Maybe
Right.
feel some of those feelings, and then reassure that part of yourself, we're going to be approaching it this time different.
Mhm.
Okay. This time, I'm not going to make you keep going if it hurts. This time, if you're out of breath and you feel like you're going to throw up, guess what? We're going to plop down and we're going to sit for a little while
Yeah.
without shame.
Right.
Okay. And we're going to do what we want to do, and we're not going to worry,
Mhm.
okay, what other people call it exercise or not, and so
Mhm.
on and so on and so on.
Mhm.
Because the expectation is that it's going to be like it was in the past.
Mhm.
And we want you to give yourself these positive, reparative experiences in the here and now with you at the helm.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You just used a word that I was thinking about, which is experience. And I
Mhm.
think part of the repair here is that you get to focus on the experience of your
Mm.
movement as
Yeah.
opposed to the past trauma, which was focused on the outcome, the result,
Right.
how much effort, quote unquote, you would put into the process. And I'm guessing, and you guys can kind of think back to your own experiences with exercise trauma, but I'm guessing that most, if not all, of those experiences had nothing to do with how much you were enjoying the
Right.
experience.
Exactly.
It was all about, can you lose weight? Can you burn
Mhm.
calories? Can you lift a certain number of pounds? Can you go a certain distance? And completely disregarding the in vivo experience
Mhm.
of just joyfully moving your body.
Right.
So, the reparative shift here is taking your vision off of the outcome and the results, which I know is hard. Diet culture has
Right.
programmed all of us
Right.
to think that way. But we're going to take our
Mm.
eyes off of these like scientific calculations
Mhm.
and shift our vision over to the experience of movement and the
Right.
feelings that you are having as you are moving. We were talking about like going to see the wildflowers, and like just
Mhm.
that will naturally be a movement experience to
Mhm.
get to go see them.
Mhm.
And so thinking about the experience of taking in wildflowers
Yeah.
outside and the feelings that come up when you have that, however many miles you walk to get there, great. That's just
Mhm.
like icing on the cake that you
Right.
get to move your body. But wow, what a beautiful experience to have. So
Mhm.
that's what we're really looking for as we approach intuitive movement.
Yeah.
And I just really want you guys to hold on to those two words, the experience of it
Mhm.
and the feeling of it, the
Mhm.
emotional quality of that experience.
As the motivator, okay? As the motivator. I want to
Right.
feel good today through movement.
Yep.
Okay. What does my body need? What does my psyche need? And
Mhm.
then try it,
Mhm.
because that's the only way that you're going to get that new experience, because there's a big pile of old
Mhm.
experiences that were negative or aversive, um, or traumatic. And so, if there's no new experiences, those are the only experiences that remain in your psyche. And
Mhm.
it's always then going to be associated with those old negative experiences, as opposed to beginning to build a nice pile of positive
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah.
Now, as we're talking about this, because we always, bring this back to the deeper work,
Yes, we
and
do.
so we like to parallel these principles to not only principles based on intuitive eating and as that affects kind of your body self in that
Mhm,
way,
mhm,
but we love to bring it to the feeling aspect of
mhm,
things. And so when we're talking in this last kind of section about past experiences with exercise that were
mhm,
traumatic, I'm thinking about this invitation
mhm,
to embrace kind of movement in a way that is positive. And I'm thinking about conversations that I have with clients, oftentimes at the very beginning of therapy,
mm,
when we are starting to talk about going on this emotional process of
mhm,
healing. Okay.
mhm,
Sometimes from past experiences of trauma,
mhm,
sometimes from people that have been so disconnected from their emotions for so many years because
mhm,
of lots of different reasons. Sometimes it's because of their gender.
mhm,
Sometimes it's because of how their family of origin did feelings. Sometimes it's what their culture said that they should or should not do relative to feelings.
mhm,
But the concept of entering therapy and or going through an emotional feeling process
mhm.
can feel very much like, here I have to jump into a marathon if I'm thinking about doing exercise.
Right.
Well, if I'm thinking about doing feelings, boom, does that mean I have to go right into that trauma memory?
Mhm,
Or do I have to remember what it was like when I was in my living room and my dad was beating my wife or
mhm,
my mother?
mhm,
Okay. And they get flooded,
mhm,
by these, feeling like if I'm going to go in there, then it's going to be this big experience that then naturally you want to just kind of avoid.
mhm,
So
mhm,
we want to talk about approaching your
mhm,
feelings in a way that is also kind of gentle and
mhm,
works with your internal process as
mhm.
opposed to somebody else saying, well, now it's time to feel this feeling in a big way,
Right, right.
right? And so the idea of beginning to gently embrace your feelings,
Mhm,
and the best way to really do that is, gosh, if I'm recognizing that today I'm sad,
mhm,
I am going to gently and with intentionality make some space for me to allow myself to experience those feelings.
mhm,
But I'm not going to like throw myself into the deep end of it. I might sit for 15 minutes outside with a journal
mhm.
and some Kleenex and just kind of be with myself and just see whatever comes up.
Mhm,
And then after 15 minutes, I'm going to maybe go for a walk and
mhm,
kind of like clear my head and shift a little bit
mhm,
so that I'm just dipping my toe kind of in the pool of emotions, right? And then I'm giving myself permission to go away from it in a way that I'm not overwhelmed.
mhm.
Okay.
It really makes me think of the intuitive movement process where if you give yourself permission to do just a little bit, to just
Hmm.
do a short walk,
Right.
and have a positive experience
Experience.
with that, then tomorrow you might want to do that again. It
Right.
might not feel so overwhelming,
Yeah.
right? And so it feels like, hey, I did it
Hmm.
and I tolerated it really well, actually.
Hmm.
And I'm kind of intrigued. And I think I'd like to do that again tomorrow. And who knows, maybe tomorrow we'll bring a 20-minute walk because you're just, you 15 minutes felt okay and you
Hmm.
kind of wanted to do a little bit more. So the feeling
Yeah.
process is very much the same way. I know when we do therapy with people, we don't jump into all of the big stuff right away.
Yeah.
We go on that kind of 15-minute walk, if you will, and we
Hmm.
check out like what are the feelings that are there, and let's just kind of get to know them,
Hmm.
and then let's take a little bit of a break, and in another session let's do that 20-minute walk
Right.
around the feeling block and just notice what's there. And each time that you allow it to be intuitive but also calm
Hmm.
and gentle, your body will naturally want to do maybe a little bit more or maybe try something a little different.
Hmm.
The same is true with your feelings. You will want to go into those feelings a little bit more. You'll start to see things from a different angle. And that emotional work will naturally unfold in a
Right.
way that's not traumatic
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
overwhelming and scary.
Yeah. Exactly. And very different than you have
Yeah.
likely experienced in the past. And this is what we call a reparative experience in the here and now.
Mhm.
So those experiences again are so important. If we avoid because of past negative experiences, the only thing that the psyche has to remember are the negatives,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so then
It
everything
protects
becomes
you.
associated. Gosh, those feelings were really scary. When I was a kid, my family would explode with emotions, and that was terrifying to
Mhm.
me. So as an adult, I avoid feelings, even
Mhm.
though it makes me not have emotional intimacy with my friends or my partner.
Mhm.
Food becomes my best friend or my lover,
Right.
okay? Or, other ways that we avoid feelings.
Mhm.
So we want to gently, based on our internal need, not
Mhm.
flooding ourselves,
Yeah.
welcome in the feelings that are naturally being asked to be paid attention to on any given day or any
Mhm.
given moment,
Mhm.
and then be able to gently go into them with skills and guidance, maybe by a
Mhm.
therapist,
Mhm.
and get comfortable with it, and then have some new positive experiences with those feelings that repair the negative traumatic ones.
Yeah. Yeah. This makes me think of some earlier video casts that we've done on intuitive feeling, which is
Right.
a term that we coined out of
Yeah.
just seeing all of the parallels between intuitive eating and
Right.
what you do with food and what you do with feelings. And today we're seeing the same parallels in what you do with movement
Right.
and what you do with feelings. If you take that diet culture approach to exercise, it's rigid, it's black and white,
Mhm.
it's all or nothing, it's couch potato or injury, right? And we're looking at intuitive movement, and the same then is true with emotions. We don't want to be rigid, we don't want to
Mhm.
be black or white, we don't want to avoid or just like go all into them and then get completely flooded and overwhelmed,
Right.
right? It's about really kind of staying constantly in tune with our body, in tune with our feelings, and really kind of leading with those at the helm, and trusting that our body knows what it needs. If it wants to go on that walk and go that extra block, you'll feel that. If it wants to
Mhm.
turn around and go home, you'll feel that.
Mhm.
The same is going to be true with your feelings.
Right.
If your body wants to go into a little bit of anxiety and process something, you'll feel that.
Mhm.
If it needs to cry because there's something sad that you're going through, you will feel that. So
Yeah.
you have permission to listen to that, and it's safe to listen to those signals.
Yeah. So there's one last kind of concept that we wanted to introduce today related to this principle number 9 of
Mhm.
movement. That feels good. Is that
Feeling the
I'm
difference?
so sorry. I always
I'm
blank.
feeling good. Yeah.
Well, it's like this new edition, right? I can't always remember all of the different principles. Oh my goodness. But this is our favorite. And we talk about this over and over again.
Uh-huh.
And it's because it really is, it's not just really the icing on the cake. It feels like the icing on the cake. To me, it is actually the nucleus
Yeah.
of really of full recovery. And we talk
Mhm.
about full recovery as that beautiful space of complete healing and thriving and actually experiencing life that is joyful, right? Even when hard things happen outside of yourself, you can still have that sense of joy inside when you are
Mhm.
really living from this place of full and lasting recovery. So, one of the ways, the most important way that we get there is through moving your soul,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And this idea of, you know, I want to be able to exercise my soul, support my soul, in whatever way it's calling,
Mhm.
right? Big
Mhm.
or small, but have it be attuned to what's going on in your spirit
Mhm.
at any given moment. Okay. So I'll just share, and this is like
Yeah.
just like such a silly little thing because I think so many times when we think about feeding our soul, we think of big things like a trip to
Mhm.
Australia or going to Iceland, which could just be kind of on someone's wish or bucket list.
Hmm.
Um, but this morning, I just had a heck of a day yesterday, and I really just was able to catch a deep breath, and it felt really, really good. And before I
Mhm.
jumped into another busy day, I made a cup of espresso and I said, it's beautiful. And guess what? The sky was blue this morning and the sun actually did rise. And so I am going to sit outside. And I sat outside, in my backyard
Mhm.
area. And it was only for 5 minutes.
Right.
But I experienced the sky. I heard the birds. There was some beautiful like grass that I was able to look at.
Mhm.
And I just enjoyed that. And it was totally for my soul.
Mhm.
Like it almost was like my soul was like, okay, now I have some space
Mhm.
and I can just take 5 minutes
Mhm.
and do what I need. And that was such an intuitive support of my
Right.
soul. It was exactly what was needed. It wasn't this big 2 day event.
Right.
And it took 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes is carrying me through my day.
Mhm.
Even as I'm telling you guys about it, I'm remembering the sounds in
Yeah.
my mind. I can actually feel that calm in my body. I see the colors
Mhm.
of the furniture I was sitting on and the green of the grass. And it really kind of makes you feel good. It instantly gives me
Mhm.
a combination of relaxation and then also like uplifting joy. So that's a beautiful way of saying, like, I was connected to myself. I knew
Mhm.
what my soul needed. No one has time to take 5 minutes and sit outside, right? But we all need to do that when we need to. And so
Yeah.
taking that time then was exactly what I needed in a way that could really feed my soul.
Well, and I love what you're saying. I think, what I'm hearing in your description, I can picture exactly where you were
I know.
sitting.
She knows.
Is, you're describing the experience,
Hmm.
and that's really what you held on to.
Because I
And
was
you're
very mindful and present. I did not have my phone out there with me on purpose.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. And you're describing how you felt,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so when we talk about intuitive movement or intuition, intuitive
Hmm.
experiences, right? It's all about what are you experiencing and what are you feeling? And you've been really able to hold
Hmm.
on to that
Right.
throughout the day,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so in the
Hmm.
intuitive eating book, they talk about one of the mental traps of exercise and diet culture is if it's not big, it's not worth it.
Right.
So if it's not a marathon, why bother? If it's not a hard hour
Hmm.
on the elliptical, why bother?
Hmm.
Now imagine taking your story
Hmm.
and transferring that into a movement experience.
Hmm.
5 minutes
Right.
of just a really soulful walk around the block.
Right.
Diet culture would say, 5 minutes, that's not going to do anything. Why bother?
Hmm.
But look at
Right.
what 5 minutes did for you
Right.
from that soul perspective.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important that we move our souls
Hmm.
in lots of
Hmm.
ways. Just like we were saying earlier, we have to have lots of ways to move physically. We also have to have lots of ways to move soulfully. And life doesn't allow us to go on vacations every week.
Right.
Darn it. If it
Right.
did,
Right.
we would. So we have to come up with lots of different ways to move
Yeah.
ourselves in these soulful, emotional, I think existential ways that bring us back to the meaning of life, the purpose of life, that kind of pull us out of some of those day-to-day stressors,
Yeah.
right? And bring us back to a connection of something much greater, much deeper,
Yeah.
bring us back to ourselves.
Yeah, and we have to do it in the here and now. Like we can't wait. So, if I would have taken that dieting mentality
Mhm.
or that exercise mentality and said, well, 5 minutes is not going to do anything. It has to be an hour.
Right.
I don't know when the next time is that I'm going to have an hour to be able to be completely soulful, right?
Mhm.
It would be nice if that would be in 2 days, but it might be in 2 weeks.
Right.
My psyche can't wait for 2 weeks. And it would be really sad because then I wouldn't have this 5 minutes that is really an abundance of positive, as you
Mhm.
were
Mhm.
reflecting back, that I needed in this moment. Like that's what my soul needed in the moment. That's what that intuitive part of it is. Like this is what I need in the here and
Mhm.
now. And
Mhm.
let me please step in and give it to myself.
Mhm.
And then in 2 weeks, I'm going to need something completely different. And in 2 weeks, if I can take myself on a 2 hour bike ride, right, to some
Mhm.
mountain park or something like that, great.
Right. Yeah.
But if I can't, then in the moment, I am going to give myself something that feeds my soul.
Mhm.
So we can't put off for tomorrow. We can't put off until it is big enough that
Mhm.
we think it will satisfy some kind of arbitrary sense of what is need fulfilling.
Yeah.
We need to say, in this moment, I need to listen to this song.
Mhm.
In this moment, I need there to be quiet.
Mhm.
In this moment, I need to pick up the phone and call this friend. In this
Mhm.
moment, I need to take a nap because that's going to feel good.
Mhm.
Right. So we need to be able to listen to
Yeah.
ourselves, step in and support, and know that's exactly what we need in the here and now.
Right.
Just like we do with exercise, just like what we do with intuitive
Mhm.
eating.
Mhm.
In the here and now, I need this for a snack because this is
Mhm.
what I feel like eating. This is what my body is asking for. And that's the only thing that matters.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. And ultimately, that's what's going to be satisfying.
Right.
That's what's going to fill you up,
Right.
right?
Right.
Whether we're talking about food, whether we're talking about movement, whether we're talking about soulful living,
Right.
this is all about really feeling satisfied as much as possible
Mhm.
every moment of life.
And trusting yourself to identify what that
Mhm.
is. Okay. Trusting yourself. Yourself is all knowing. Okay. It will always tell you exactly what you need. We don't get in trouble by giving ourselves what our soul is asking for. We
Mhm.
get in trouble when we deny it, deny it, deny it. And then it builds up and then it becomes kind of a compulsive need
Yeah.
that then feels out of control.
Yeah, we get in
Mhm.
trouble when we deny it. We get in trouble when we question it,
Yeah,
right? I think there's so much like, oh, but do I really need that? I mean,
right.
that's not really going to do anything. And
Yeah.
yet, if you really dial into your intuition, the answer is so clear.
Mhm.
Yourself, your soul, your body, they're all talking and they will never misdirect you.
Yeah. So, to kind of summarize what we've talked about today, we have talked about the difference between using the word exercise and movement.
Yeah.
We've talked about the importance of the intuitive piece. I like that intuition starts with I because it reminds me of being internally based
Mm,
as opposed to externally based. We always want to turn to the true expert, and the true expert is going to be yourself.
mhm.
So we want to start looking at movement based on what feels good
Yeah.
to you at any given moment. The intention and the motivation is to feel good. It's not to burn calories or to have your body be a certain shape or size. It's to do something that is optimally healthy from an evolutionary point of view. And healthy sometimes is a tough word to use, but I am going to use it because
Mhm.
our bodies are meant to move. All
Mhm.
right. So we need that. It's like drinking water,
Sure.
right? It's moving our bodies.
Well, and we can say that objectively and neutrally. We're
Right.
not putting judgment on it. We're not saying this movement is good and that movement
Right.
is bad. We're
Right.
just saying,
Right.
find what works for you, find what feels good for you, embrace it in a way that really is in your personal flow and in your intuition,
Yeah.
and give yourself permission to enjoy the heck out of it.
Yeah. We then also brought it to feelings, and we talked about the process of feelings where lots and lots of times when someone says, okay, I'm ready to start feeling, they will flood themselves just
Mhm.
like they do with exercise,
Mhm.
right? I'm going to start exercising or moving after I haven't for 15 years. And guess what?
Mhm.
I'm signing up for this half marathon, right? And you end up hating it, getting injured. It's just as too harsh and abrupt for your body. It's the same thing with feelings and emotions.
Mhm.
If you decide to go on an emotional journey to heal or to emotionally grow, that is wonderful. Don't throw yourself into an emotional fire
Mhm.
until you've gotten comfortable feeling again,
Mhm.
connecting to those emotions, doing it based on your psyche's pacing. When
Mhm.
I work with clients, I'm not the one that decides the
Right.
pacing.
Right.
My client's psyche decides the pacing, and it's
Mhm.
my job to tune into that and then to
Mhm.
pay attention to that timing because I'm not the expert. My client is the expert, and the
Mhm.
psyche of the client is the expert. So you want to learn how to do that for your emotional and feeling self. And then lastly, we talked about this wonderful concept of moving your soul in that
Mhm.
same intuitive way. What does your soul call for in this day, in this moment? And can you step in without judgment or parameters and just simply support it? And
Mhm.
when you do, just like when you feel and when you've had other experiences of listening to your soul, it feels so wonderful that it
Mhm.
ends up being reinforcing,
Right.
and it also is validating that I am the expert because you know what? This morning I needed 5 minutes outside with that cup of espresso. And that was the best thing that I needed to get me through this day. It was perfect. And my psyche is the one that gave that to me. That's who came up with it.
Mhm. And imagine if you had denied that request.
Right.
This day would
Yeah.
not be feeling
Yeah,
good.
I
Your
wouldn't be I wouldn't be
experience would be
this
so different.
centered, this calm, like, it literally I can call up that image. I
Mhm.
have probably about 10 times since we've been talking about it,
Right.
and my psyche feels it. It calms it
Mhm.
right down. I have these wonderful memories, and
Mhm.
on a, biochemical level, it really I'm sure it's, like, increasing some of my serotonin.
Sure.
It's just feeling really, really good.
And I
So
think the same is true for making plans, making
mhm,
plans that will move your soul.
right.
I've got a couple of things coming up. They're nothing big, but
Mhm,
I'm certainly looking forward to
yeah,
them. And so that's also anchoring me and like, oh, my
yeah,
soul's going to get its turn very,
right.
very soon with some fun things. So
Yeah,
being
so
able
important.
to make that a priority in your
Mm,
planning and your scheduling, your use of time, money, and resources,
yeah,
put that at the top of your list. It's that important.
yeah. So I hope this is speaking to you.
Yeah.
I love talking about the intuitive aspect of things because ultimately we need to bring ourselves back to ourself, to the
Mhm.
wisdom of our internal process, our intuition. And when we get out of our own way and we listen to it and we step in and we lovingly support it in all sorts of different ways, depending on what it's calling for in that moment in time, that's what brings this beautiful experience of joy and fulfillment. And guess what? A sense of ultimate control over your life, okay, in a healthy way. Because it's
Mhm.
like, I'm going to have this need. And guess what? I can count on myself to step in and deliver it,
Right.
okay, which is wonderful because then you don't have to have pseudo control in other ways like dieting,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay? So this is so important, and there's layers of meaning in the approach that we're taking today.
Mhm.
So listen to yourself,
Mhm.
slow down, honor what that need is, okay? And then the next day, do the same process, and it might look and feel totally different,
Mhm.
but the process of it is going to be just beautiful and right because it's going to be
Yeah.
internally based.
And I really hope that this conversation, as is true for all of our conversations, I hope that they're showing you what's possible. Because I think so often, getting out of our own way is about untangling ourselves from all of the nonsense that we got earlier in our lives, whether it's early life messaging, whether it's diet culture, whether it's traumatic experiences, all of the things that pulled us away from ourselves, that got us thinking things are a certain way or need to be a certain way. And hopefully through these conversations we're showing you another
Right.
possible way, a way to approach yourself with loving kindness, a way to be gentle with yourself and flexible, and not be so rigid and punitive as I know diet culture and emotional binge eating can be about. So, hopefully, you guys are seeing some new possibilities with how to think about movement, how to approach movement, your
Mhm.
feelings, and ultimately yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, guys, happy Wednesday.
Yep.
Good to see everybody, and we look forward to next time.
We sure do. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.